Translating the Hithpael indirect reflexive. What exactly is an indirect reflexive? Well, a reflexive is where a subject is acting on itself. The indirect reflexive is where a subject acts for the benefit of itself, but not on itself. Here are a couple examples. Pelel. Pelel is the piel form, and it means he mediated, or he intervened, or he arbitrated. Okay, so I'll put down he mediated. So you're trying to solve a problem, someone else's problem. Okay. He mediated, possibly between two parties. Down here, Hithpael, when you put this into the Hithpael, you get he prayed. Well, what does he prayed have to do with he mediated? E-R-A-Y-E-D. He prayed. That's supposed to be a P. What this is instead of him mediating, he mediates for himself. He doesn't mediate to himself, doesn't arbitrate himself or intervene himself. He mediates, or he seeks mediation for himself, for the benefit of himself, right? He doesn't pray to himself. He prays to God for himself. That's why it's indirect, because the action isn't happening directly on the subject. It's happening, the action is directed towards an object, but for the benefit of the subject. So, for as opposed to on. That's what I was trying to think here. So indirect, if you think for, action is happening for the subject, just a plain old direct object, or plain old direct reflexive, it would be the action is happening on the subject. So if you can think of on versus for, that will distinguish the two. Another example, Hanan. This is actually the kal. It occurs mostly in the kal. It doesn't occur once in the PL only. This means to show, to be gracious, or to show favor. And in the Hithpael, Hitchanein, it means to implore favor, to ask for favor. So let me put that down, to implore. Or ask for favor. This is to show favor in the kal. So here we have a reflexive, an indirect reflexive. He doesn't implore himself. He implores someone else for the benefit of himself, asking for favor. Now, this is an example where we have a verb that shows up in the Hithpael, but doesn't really show up in the PL. There's only one form in the PL. So sometimes you'll get these things, and you have to, this is where you really have to look it up in the dictionary and see which binyanim the verb shows up in, because you can't predict it. It may be in the kal and not the PL, but then the Hithpael like we have here, which may seem a little counterintuitive because the PL goes with the Hithpael. Here we have it, the kal, and the reflexive is in the Hithpael. Well, that's just the way it is, I guess. A last example here, and this is a bit different, but I put it in here just again to show that there are some nuances to these things. Machar means to sell. Hit maker means he let himself be sold, or at least according to Seo, page 298, he talks about this. He calls this the tolerative. Okay, so this is he sold. He sold, and this is he let himself be sold. So it's like an indirect reflexive in that he's allowing, or he's doing something that falls back on himself. He isn't selling himself directly, but he's allowing it to happen to himself. But it's a bit more passive than active. Normally here, he implored favor. He's imploring favor to someone else for his own benefit. Here he's not really doing anything for his own benefit. He's actually just allowing something to happen for his own benefit. So it's kind of a subset. Tolerative is what Seo calls this. Tolerative. So you look in different grammars and you'll find people describing these things in different levels of detail. Again, for reading, it's not so important that you know these sort of labels. That doesn't really matter. But sometimes if you run through these labels and read about them, then at least you have some sense of the scope, of the possibilities. Okay, so that's indirect reflexive, where the subject acts for the benefit of itself as opposed to acting on itself, which is the normal direct reflexive.